You ready, love?
The sun is shining, the weather is free.
Okay, welcome to Good Vibes Cafe, where the tea is hot. We've got iced matcha, the cookies are fresh. Today I have Nacho Mama's broccoli rice casserole. I call everything that's boring, I try to say Nacho Mama's.
It makes it a lot better.
Yeah, anyways, it's delicious. It's got smoked Gouda and all kinds of stuff in it. And Nobu was like, what was that? He loves cheese.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what I'm going to say. And we had to start over because I have my dog who was going to just make me really regret trying to introduce him tonight. But this is my emotional support dog. And I think I emotionally support him right now. But it's all right because he's a puppy. But he does help lower my anxiety a whole lot when he is not losing his mind. But so we've already kind of gotten into this. The cool thing about Ashley and I is that we can start talking about anything at any time, and I really like to get natural, candid conversations so I don't have to worry about us overthinking anything. Mm-hmm. So she was like, do you know what you're gonna do tonight? And I was like, yep, but kind of no, but yeah. Mm-hmm. So but tonight the episode is called Are Christians Okay? And I don't know how many parts there will be. I would love for there just to be a part one. We'll go see if we can do it. But it goes so deep, and there's so much that that I think I need to get out as far as just on a personal level, because you know when you start to tell stuff back to people, you always see it a different way. You're like, oh, I forgot all about. You ever been in the middle of a story? You're like, I forgot all about that.
And this one detail.
Right. So
another layer of trauma. Let's add it.
Goodness gracious.
That's kind of how it is when it comes to those kind of stories.
It's true, and my whole blogging process and online process has just been an online journal to myself. But then when I started to realize that other people can identify with it, it's like kind of an online journal that I share with everybody. So that's kind of what everything is transitioning into now. I think I gave my heart and my soul and my talents and my side butt and my judgments back in the day, and I have evolved and made a 180 into this person who is now just not interested in how saturated the internet has become. And I am just wanting to transition into podcasting, mainly because I want to be able to focus more on things that really matter. When I was getting paid full time from the internet and from Meta, I could justify my work sometimes being every day posting online. But now I keep saying in my head, they ain't getting that shit for free, but it's true. But also my real work is advocating, and my podcast and everything that I've done up until this point is just to get me to the point to be able to take the next step and to be able to work to change policy and to change everything that we need to, because the problem with everything is mental health, and we'll get to that on another episode called maybe like, is America okay or Americans okay? I don't know.
There's plenty of is anybody okay, because we're all struggling, unfortunately, in this really rich country we live in.
For some reason, right?
Yeah, apparently we're super privileged and we have all the advantages, but in the generations that we've grown up in, it's not the same. Trying to buy a house, good luck before you're 30. So no, I mean, and then I think that adds to the conversation tonight when you're talking about Christianity and when everyone is struggling and in a desperate place. What are people reaching out for? And that's like, I don't hate. I'm agnostic, but I don't hate on folks who have a religion or have a faith. Like, whatever makes this place something to be alive for and to hope for, or at least there's some, if it causes you to have some good positive joy on it, I'm all for it. If it's helping you.
That's one of the things, I guess before we started this and got interrupted, I was going to say there was 3 things that I would start off if I were this aware when my kids were smaller and I were going to introduce them to religion, and in my house would be Christianity. Not that it was ever forced down their throats, but it was like, they were born and they were at church, But something that I would explain to them one, I like that I'm at the point in my life where I'm able to give real life examples for one, people that they have known, because now it's like doing it later on in life, right? But when they're smaller, it would probably be like, I have a friend, Ashley. We've been friends for this many years. We don't ever have to talk about what we believe in or make each other feel bad or bring it up to each other or things like that. Because,
or if we did, it wouldn't make a...
So anyways.
Alright. So live.
If I were going to tell my kids 3 things introducing them to Christianity, I think that maybe parents in religions do their kids a big injustice by just not breaking down what religion is meant to be used for.
Okay.
Because the thing is, especially Christians, because, okay, we're in America, and, if you were to go in Walmart and even mention out loud that you didn't believe in God, you're going to hear like 7 gasps, and some random lady's going to come up to you and be like, bless your heart, let me pray for you. Like, it's just not an option here. Like, let's just be real. There's going to be 98% of whoever's watching this that are uncomfortable because, man, even my mom asked me last October when we did our photo shoot for Halloween. She was like, hey, I just want to know, like, you're not a witch, are you? No, it is Halloween. But it is just very, very frowned upon to not be a Christian, and that's just the truth.
And openly not a Christian.
And that's just the truth.
Thing.
So, religion is not meant for you to make anybody else feel bad about what they choose to believe in. Religion, number one, is faith. Because if you look at any religion, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism,
Islam,
Judaism, anything, they're all believing in kind of the same principles, but also everybody is making a choice to believe.
Yes.
So if you have Christians who are choosing to believe that Noah took his animals 2 by 2 on a boat and that Jesus walked on water, but you don't understand why Muslims pray to Allah several times a day. You think that it doesn't make sense. If you're gonna have faith, you have to have faith, and you have to stand 10 toes down in that faith, and you can't mock somebody else's faith because they choose to believe something different than you. Because if we're gonna be real, every faith and every religion has some kind of story that's not humanly possible, that none of us have seen with our own eyes. So we're still all choosing to believe
something incredible.
It's a fairy tale, but it's a religion that we're gonna believe, and that's fine, because if that's what you believe, that's what you believe. And because of how I was born, where I was born, who my parents were, and where my heart and soul are still rooted, at least now at 35, I am and will always be a Christian, and will always love Jesus, and will always love God, because that's just who I am. And then I've lived too much in my life to feel like there's been times where something didn't come through for me. Now, I feel like what I have distinguished now for me, that I think that the church and the youth group for sure does an injustice in teaching the kids coming up in church, is that, like, God is within us, and we're taught to abandon ourselves fully, wholly, everything, just obliterate everything that you know that is yourself, and you're supposed to be like God. Well, here's the problem. God is a perfect person that we all say that we could never, he's, what's the word that they use? Omniscient. He's so big, he's so powerful, that we could never fathom much about him, even though there's a book that says every single thing about him, but we'll get to that later. But if the goal that we're trying to get to is already unattainable, then we're already setting ourselves up for failure. So I think that in Christianity, that we need to spin it to realize that, God is within all of us, and we're not meant to abandon who we are to try to reach this attainable goal. We're meant to use his strength to be who he created us to be. And so many people get lost in Christianity and religion, and they start getting judgmental and hateful and self-righteous and all of these things because they've shifted the focus.
Well, they're putting people in a box.
And they've abandoned themselves so much that they're trying to get every single person to be like God.
Which is in their mind. You know, that's the flaw right there.
And it's unattainable.
The human error.
It's totally unattainable.
Yeah.
When the goal is to, and I just gave my boyfriend this example. And then here's where you and I, with our friendship, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but so, of course, when we got back together as adults, we both had kids, and I was super in the church. You were agnostic. We did not have one uncomfortable conversation about anything to do with our religion, knowing where we were. We didn't have to make each other feel any kind of way because we were just both being decent humans. You weren't out killing nobody. All I really cared about, you know what I mean? Like, there's things that you care about, and really in the grand scheme of things, I just don't want people out there hurting other people.
Right.
And if my friends or whoever I'm with, family, if they believe in something that keeps them a decent person, why would I have an argument? You know, and we don't know enough about heaven for me to say I'm going to miss you in heaven and not see you there. We just don't know. You know, most people say that you go to heaven and you forget so you won't feel pain for missing all the people that you left behind. So, you know, it's just like, there's a lot of things about our friendship that I think just personify doing it the right way, because you don't have to say, I only keep friends I can take to church, or I only no, why? But why? Tell me why. Can you explain that to me? So yeah, that's just something I would tell my kids. One of the things, I don't know if that's all of the three things together, but you know, it's not like abandoning yourself and forgetting who you are and ever clinging to this image or this person or this thing that you'll never get to, because I'll tell you right now, the only reason you're trying to get to that goal is because everybody else is trying to get you to that goal, and everybody else is judging you because they're not anywhere close to doing what they want you to do. So it's just this cycle where you're just setting yourself up for failure. And
sounds exhausting.
It's very exhausting. So I didn't really understand what church hurt was. We talked about me being in this bubble and being very, very naive for a while, because I did live in a bubble, and I was a part of a very well astute group of Christians. Definitely, if anybody watching this knows anything about me, they know who my family has worked for. They know who I worked for. They know that, my background with the church runs deep, deep, deep. I grew up in Oak Cliff, Texas, and I went to Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship. And when Dr. Tony Evans, a couple of years ago, he released a study Bible. I don't know the exact, can you look this up, love? Dr. Tony Evans wrote a study Bible. Can you see how many years it took him to write it? I think it's I want to say 40 years. And when I saw that fact released, I was like, I can't study on something for 40 days. How the heck? 40 years? It took him 40 years to write.
That's a meta study right there.
A study Bible, a breakdown of the Bible. So, that's the church background that I come from. I come from, the pastor gets on the stage, he preaches out of the Bible, and Dr. Tony Evans is known for giving these analogies that make the Bible make sense. And it's not even like he's breaking it down for dummies. I remember being in church one time and him giving an example of serving and what serving God meant. And he said, So say you buy a brand new refrigerator and a brand new toaster. In your refrigerator, you plug it in and it works. All good. He's like, in your toaster, you plug it in and it says it don't want to work. And you're like, but I bought you to toast. And it's like, well, I don't want to toast today. And he's like, well, that's how God feels when he made you to serve and you don't want to serve him. Like, he used analogies like that. He didn't use, like you said, like analogies that made you feel shameful or regretful or all of these things. He just made it very, very, very simple. We are here to serve God, and he broke it down very, very simple. So when I was brought up in his church, and then when we went to another church when I was in junior high, it was a pastor that was taught by him. Is that delicious or what? You look like you're in heaven. So he taught the same way. There was no getting in between to me what God was trying to say to me. And it was always the same thing. Be a good person, do these things, serve me. And my way of serving God was the same way that I served my parents when I went out in the public. I didn't embarrass them, right? So God says, don't do these things. So I'm a child of God. And if I want to be represented as one, I'm not going to be going out doing all these things, representing God that way. Come on. I got cheese. You want cheese? So that's how I kind of broke it down because of the church background that I came from, and then where I kind of went as an adult. And when I got to, when I graduated high school and I got to college, and I go to this freaking polarizing college town where it's literally white people on one side of the tracks and black people on the other side.
Literally.
We had the color purple Baptist, no air conditioning, pastor screaming on the pulpit, choir in robes. That was the one church we could go to. And then we had the contemporary Chris Tomlin, Our God is an Awesome God. Nobody clapped when they played songs. I remember I brought my grandparents to visit, and they clapped on beat, and everybody looked around like, oh, there's visitors, because we don't know how to clap. Like,
we're not on
it
beat. Was
like blackety, blackety, black, black, or just wiggity white, and there was no in between. And it was so uncomfortable that, like, I felt like I was going to the black church just because I was black. And then when I was going to the white church, I felt like the token, like I always am, like the token black family. And we literally were, but at the time it was like we had a newborn baby, and that was the group that we fit into better. And I don't really have many complaints about going to that church in Ruston. The only complaint I did have was just, there was a 1,000 years of tradition at that place. What could they change at that point? They were always so nice to us. We met a lot of people there that I'm still friends with to this day.
Yeah.
But those were my two experiences and my two options in college. And that's where I learned, and I would always say this thing, it's like we are the most divided on Sundays. And Christians want so bad, to say that we're all this and we're all that and we're all united. But the truth is, people want who they want with who they want them with. And it's not a secret. And that's become sad, is that people see that now and people are open about it. But what do you think so far?
I think you're tiptoeing around all of the big things that happened to you when it comes down to church. How about that? Because it's actually a pretty sad, traumatic story. And it was totally one of my biggest fears, knowing you were going up to Minnesota. And a big driver of that being a church entity with that. So always apprehensive when it came to you're moving there and all the stuff, but totally bought into it, just like you, because things seemed very decent for a while. But what is decent? And there's the problem right there. There's no what's to judge decent and level. No, you get used to a level of abuse or trauma or consistent bad behavior, and that's normal for you. It's easy when you're someone that does like to keep things moving and rolling and positive. The people pleaser, that part of us.
I guess, like, there would be a good time to talk about the timeline moving there. Because, you know, a lot of the questions we would get when we were in Minnesota be like, where are you from? Texas, why are you here? And we'd be like, oh, it's a God thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So before Minnesota, after college, so after we got done with the Wiggity White Church, we came back. We went to this church that was like, when I talk about Tony Evans studying the Bible, this church was like so theological. We had Sunday school before church, and I tell you, this guy broke down the Bible. I felt like I needed like a dictionary and a thesaurus, but I felt very educated on the Bible. I was getting a lot of knowledge, but like went to that church, and then we came back to Mansfield, and my ex started working for a church just doing security. And one day I remember he came home and he said something about, we were praying at church earlier, and I was like, I thought you were just working at this church. And he was like, well, you know, and I was like, if you're part of a prayer circle, like you are attending this church, this is like something we need to talk about as a family, you know.
Yeah.
So he invited me there, and when I would have my newborn babies, I was already like mama bear, central. So I had just had Breland, and I had him in a sling, and
you were like, don't touch my babies before that was a thing.
Right. Yeah. So I went, and I just didn't like it. I just didn't. And reluctantly, I just kind of kept going back, and he ended up getting kind of on staff as the chief of security there. So I just was like, it's fine, whatever. But the thing about me and my whole life is that if you're not taught what intuition is, and especially if you are made to think that your intuition is just you being a bitch,
or is paranoid.
But mine has always been kind of like, but like, if you know me, I'm like the nicest, meanest person, right? Like deep down, I hate people, but I don't really. Like, I want them to make me not hate them. I just don't give people the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
So to me, and especially with my ex, he was like too damn friendly. And now we know goddamn why. Okay, I wasn't crazy, but like, he was always so friendly. And to me, it was always like, can we take some steps back and like observe the situation before we just jump into this church like this or whatever? So I was always the more reserved one that would just kind of step back and look around, and I just always kind of got a weird vibe. But you find your people that you get close to, and I did. And then I met, wow, this is freaking tragic. It's going to come full circle.
It's not going to come full circle.
We had a couple that we became really close with, and Tony, the husband, he died. He committed suicide. And that was when we were in Minnesota, but we had come back for his funeral and everything, but we were still pretty attached to the church. But before we left the church, there was something that happened that I didn't process until probably when I was going through my divorce in the beginning. But so when we left off in the first podcast, when I had gone to the psych ward because I had just come off of my ex having an affair. Well, I still didn't know the truth about that affair. And what I had known at the time was that, well, first I found out about the affair because I was checking my son's iPad photos, and I found photos that, I don't know, I'm pretty sure my vagina is just not pink in a lot of places. And I was like, that's just not my vagina. Something's weird. I know Braxton doesn't have pictures of vagina on his phone. So that's how I found out about that. And of course it was like, it was one time, whatever. Yeah. So after this, this makes sense. This is before I went to the psych ward.
I wondered if things were going to click while I
This is before I went to the psych ward. Yeah. So this was like, okay, I know I have a problem. Let's go get help. Let's go to my pastor. He will counsel us. We go to a meeting with the pastor, and we jump straight into my mental health. There was no discussion about the affair.
Or anything.
There was no discussion about him getting help. There was no discussion about anything other than my mental health. So have you always been sad like this? So what do we need to do to get you help? And then we had discussions on how, your husband works a hard job, so when he gets home from work, you want to make sure that the environment you set for him is a happy environment. I know you may be sad and or all this or all that, but just make sure that you're making it welcoming when he comes home. When you do his laundry, when you fold his boxers, when you fold his t-shirts, when you fold his socks, say prayers over them for protection.
Bullshit.
Pray about how much you love him and how much you value your marriage and how much you want to protect him. Oh yeah, it was deep. And then we left that meeting and he told me if I went and got help, he would give me a gift. Now that church that we were going to at the time that we jumped full throttle into, nobody at that church made less than $150K a year. And the pastor of that church was good and paid. And I don't even think it was wrong. I think people just gave him money. But he had a lot of money. So if he said he was going to give you a gift, you knew it wasn't going to be like a mug that said congratulations, right? Mm-hmm. That week, went to the doctor. That was the first time I'd ever gotten help. But I remember I told you I just got the antidepressant. Went and showed him, hey, I got an antidepressant. He gave me a check for $600. And that was that. So fast forward to my ex gets really into this private security thing because, you know, he was a police officer at the time. And one of his side gigs was that he worked with my stepdad who worked in private security for churches. Mm-hmm. And they would consult and he would go to churches and help them get together a security team, tell them what they needed because, you know, church shootings are real. That's a whole nother episode, right? That's why, like, how many could this be? Mm-hmm. So he went to Minnesota and did this consultation for this church. And when he came back, I just remember him, like, talking to me and then he was like, and then the best part is, and like, he pulls out this envelope and it's like $1,000. And I'm like, damn, like, they paid you that? And he was like, this isn't even what I charged them. This is just like what the guy gave me. And I was like, that's cool. Mm-hmm. And then like later on, like some weeks or so later, like I remember the pastor of the church calling him and they hung up and he's like, yeah, I love you too. And I was like, who are you telling? This guy's telling you he loves you? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, like he's a really cool guy. Like, and I was like, well, all right. But you know, again, like I'm always like, okay, are you just being a bitch because you just always think people are weird? And then
open.
You know how I get mad when I'm like, isn't it sad that I look at nice people weirdly because I'm just so used to everybody just being right. So it's always like, okay, am I just being judgmental because this is probably a really nice guy or whatever. So this guy invites us to the church anniversary that December and like flies us out first class, like stayed, I think we stayed at the Mall of America, like they had like a Marriott connected to it or whatever. You know, he got us a car to go to the service. The service was incredible because they gave their yearly recap. And on the recap, they gave these mini sandwiches to the homeless. They, their outreach. I mean, they gave like millions of pounds of food to the homeless yearly. They actually helped addicts in recovery. They had recovery homes. They did things that my last church was lacking because like I would have problems because I'd be like, I thought we were going to have community service. I thought we were going to do this. And we would be doing nothing but raising money to get a new building, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is not what church is supposed to be. So when I went to this church, I was like, wow, they're actually doing what Jesus wants us to do. They're going out, they're feeding the homeless, they have community service, they're helping people get back on their feet. And then the pastor, he would always talk about all of his shit in the past and how he has, you know, and for me it's like people don't stand on the pulpit and openly talk about how they fucked up in the past. Mm-hmm. And then once I identified with that and I saw another imperfect person, because you know that's the realm I operate in. It's like all of us are imperfect and I hate people who try to act like they are. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I loved this place. And all the events that happened after that, because, you know, I think still, even though I've gotten more patience, I still don't have patience. But back then, I still did have enough patience to not force things, and I would try to let things happen on their own. And it just really felt like the universe was just moving us forward in this direction of moving to Minnesota to be a part of this church. And there was like no snags in the way. And the biggest thing was like, I didn't want to leave my grandparents because, you know, they're my besties, they're getting older, and we live down the street from them, and you know, we took them to do everything. And once they told me, they said, okay, well, if you go, what's the worst that can happen? You can come back. And I'm like, you're right. Like, ain't no way. There's one thing I know about my life, and that's that I might have to bite my pride and my ego, but I'll never be homeless. Like, I've got so many people, you know, that would take us in a heartbeat. So we literally sold everything in our house, sold our actual house. And if one thing moving back to Dallas showed me was like, why did I ever leave? How many times are we out and we see people we know, or I tell you like who I ran into, or I saw this person there, or how do they know this person? Like, I didn't leave Dallas. I didn't flee. I didn't leave for a better life. I didn't leave to make better connections. I didn't leave because there was something in Minnesota that I didn't have in Dallas. I left to genuinely serve Jesus. We had no job and no plan. All we had was a place to live and savings. And we knew we could survive for like 6 months. And before we made the final decision to move down there, it was like when we found our house down there, and then the way that the realtor and everything happened, we just were like, wow, this is crazy. We had a dinner in the pastor's backyard, and it was the leadership of the church. And you know, when you're just not used to certain things and you get introduced to things, and like I tell you all the time, life moves so fast and you're just unable to process. Just, it was so incredible to me that there was this group of people, we're all sitting around this fire, and he says, you know, go ahead and tell these people what they mean to you and what it would mean to you if they brought their lives here, you know. And they just filled us up with all of the, I don't even remember what they said. It was enough for me to move. It was enough for me to say, well, I'm leaving my family, my friends, my community, my resources, like everything. And these people, this last conversation made it all worth it. Because I said, okay, it's God, it's Jesus, it's the universe. We're supposed to be here. They love us, they support us, whatever. And then we move our whole lives up there. And Hendrix, if you knock that down, everybody in this house is fired. I didn't even know, we're just gonna have all my emotional support animals. I didn't even know that we were entering into a situation where we were being welcomed with people already hating us, because we were never in a rush to do anything. Like I said, we were letting the universe happen. We had everything set up here. There was not even a deadline. Like, we weren't renting. Like, we could sell our house at any time. There was no lease agreements, none of that stuff. So for some reason, the pastor rushed everybody and broke everybody's back for like 30 days. Like, they bought the house, renovated it in 30 days, and then got it ready for us to move in like within 30 days. And so like, we're getting there like happy, like moved our whole lives, did all this stuff, and people are tired and pissed because they're like, who were these people that we did all of this stuff for? And in communities like that, jealousy runs rampant, and it's not something that I realized until I got there.
Insecurities, though, at the end of the root of it all. You know what I mean?
It was literally
like that's where the jealousy stuff. It's and at the end of the day, it's them, but they're lacking, and that's their insecurity, and then that fuels that. So sad, because it's a hard, long one. It's not a. People present themselves differently out front, outwardly, and their insecurities and how comfortable they are to show you and how really vulnerable they are. And a lot of times it's not genuine because it's a scary place to be. And a lot of people are terrified to be in that vulnerable space, to show themselves in that way. Because, of course, what comes with vulnerability but the opportunity to be hurt. And so vulnerability and bravery is huge. And for me, all the relationships I ever want going forward are ones that I can be those things in. Because what's the point? What are we faking it for? Like, when we're young,
like
we said high school, but I'm like, God, I want better for my kids.
Yeah,
I don't want them to be high school for them. Alright, get over that in middle school. Get it.
Okay, so here's something, let me tell you, walking into that community, and I think this is where we can kind of like, because I can't get into it without getting into it, so I'm gonna find a way to kind of wind it down so we can pick it up at another time. But something that I identify now, because okay, so I moved there, everybody's mad, and then we start being a part of this community, and I'm like, wow, everybody sucks. Everybody sucks.
That out pretty quick. You had said that for a very long time.
Everybody sucks. Like, and it is such a knife through the chest to realize that, one, not only did you leave everything and everyone, but now you're in fucking Minnesota where it is winter 10 out of 12 months. Yeah. And it is snowing 9 of those. And I'm from the South. And do you remember every single day when I lived in that house in Arlington, around the corner from my parents' house, I was on my screened-in porch. No mosquitoes, no flies, my rocking chair, and I had a fan on that bad boy.
And Nancy was gardening.
I was in the sun every day. When it was raining, I was on the porch.
It was
in the warm,
nice in the rain.
like,
yeah.
So moving to Minnesota and already taking away my sun, but then taking away my heat. And then I had no people. Yeah,
no real warm people, like genuinely warm people. Let's just say you moved to the coldest of
when
in your entire life. That was the space.
I used to think I was being dramatic because I remember talking to one of my friends and he said, "Stop saying you don't have any friends up there." And I said, "I'm not lying. I don't."
Yeah.
Because everybody was somebody I went to church with.
And I felt helpless because I was like, I don't know anybody in fucking Minnesota. You know, like, if anything, like, being a friend, I'm going to connect to somebody. But there's nothing I could do for you up there. And it was a very long time of you saying that, feeling so helpless on this side of it all as your friend.
So,
it was really rough.
I mean, once I got in and made that realization, I literally fell into a depression. Like, I was already, when we sold our house and I wasn't cooking a lot because we were living with my grandparents and we were eating out, I was already like rapidly kind of putting on weight, right? Yeah. So I probably left here like a solid like 175.
Okay, yeah.
And we got there in August of 2017, and by Christmas of 2017 I was like 220.
That's crazy.
Because I was depressed.
Yeah.
I slept, I cried, I ate, and I went to those boring freaking church services, and we didn't have an option to be at AM or PM.
I remember.
We had to be
when
at
both.
When
I visited, you were like, you gotta be at both.
And like the fact that my family and friends just let me live my life because y'all love me so much, and like my sister was one of the ones, she was like, so hey baby, you're a part of a cult. And I was like, it's not a cult, it's a church. And she was like, it's a cult, but I love you. But you know, you don't recognize things like that. And that's when I started therapy.
It's hard to say. Who is it? Like, who's
well, you know what I
because
mean?
you have enough people around you that are humble that are not going to be like, we know everything.
And at the end of
We're
the
not
day,
going to
was I
assume we know
safe?
the whole fucking thing. Exactly.
Was I safe and was I happy?
Exactly.
I wasn't like sitting there
I wouldn't
like
say happy, but you were safe.
I was.
Yes.
I was all right.
I'll give you the safe.
But I told you, you knew how I was doing.
Yes,
Everybody
yes.
else thought I was happy, but you knew the truth. But you knew I was all right.
Yes. I mean, there's nothing I could do. Again, that helpless, faraway feeling. This is the experience that she's going to have to write out. No matter what, she can fall back on this. Knowing that.
So I started going to therapy, and I remember, like, first of all, there was a funny time when, oh my God, how do you even, this is so hard not to get into it. So, let's just say, it's like, could you imagine, like, it's a high school, and, like, the cool group of kids is, like, who everybody wants to be with, but, like, also, like, the cool group of kids is the rejects?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like everybody wanted to be a part of this inner nuclear group, and I just knew that they were all freaking weirdos.
Uh-huh.
So my struggle was always having to be a part of the inner group and having to be at everything, but it was always weird. It was always awkward. It was always zero fun because everybody there was fake. I knew they didn't like me. I knew they talked shit behind my back. I knew I couldn't tell them anything without it getting back to the pastor and him letting me know that it got back to him.
Yeah.
So it's like I would go to these things to be cute and awkward and like eat food that needed a whole lot of salt. So
Cool Minnesota.
So I remember the turning point in helping me navigate my religion, my control over myself and my identity,
And what that meant to you, all of it.
Establishing my personal relationship with what home meant to me, and then reestablishing myself outside of being a mom after all of my kids were in school and all I had was the church I didn't like in Minnesota, was because I started mindfulness therapy when I went to Minnesota.
Yeah.
No, when I say the universe lined up everything for me to get there, it wasn't a lie.
Right.
I, without a doubt, feel like I served a prison sentence, and it's not even a joke.
No,
like, there were some times where I'd be like, okay, 3 more winners. Okay, 2.5 more winners.
We counted down
like,
lots of times. There were times where you were counting them, and it was a summertime.
Every month, I'm looking at cheap flights to Dallas, cheap flights to Dallas, cheap flights to Dallas.
I'll have so-and-so coming in next. Okay, good. Because
I was pissed.
We counted on someone being there at some point.
I'm never going to let Tyler live down that I was going to be here for her birth. Remember, my plane ticket was like $27. I was like, it is meant for me to be there. And that little baby came early, but I still came afterwards.
Yeah.
But I was here as much as I could. I hated it there. And I know that it was meant to take me away from everything that was comfortable. Because at the end of the day, in Dallas, like, I haven't really utilized it now because I honestly feel like I utilized it more back then because my kids were small and they took, like, all of my energy. Yeah. Like, now, if I'm exhausted, I can sleep. The kids can eat ramen, you know?
That'd be fine.
So, but at the end of the day, I know and I knew, I didn't know it then, but, like, if I was having a rough day in Texas, bottom line, I have you, my granddad. How many times did my granddaddy come over just to mop my floors for me?
Yes.
My mom would take the kids if she didn't have anything going on. She would take them in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I had so many people who could help me cope in a way that was distracting from what I needed to be dealing with, right? So in Minnesota, I was taken away from all of that. All I had was, like, stuff that I had to look around at and face. I didn't have friends to distract me. I didn't have my grandparents to come do anything for me. I didn't even have anywhere to go. All I had was my house. Like, there's no, let me go to Ashley's and have a glass of wine with her. Let me go to my aunt's house. Let me go to Tegan's house. Let me go to Whitney's house and talk to her mom. Like, there was nobody's house for me to go to. And for me, that was one of the hardest things because I was so used, especially, like, you know, I'm not going to spend $1 million to take my kids everywhere all the time. So, you know, we grab my kids. Hey, me and the kids are coming over. My grandparents' house, my aunt's house, wherever. And it's an adventure for us because we're just getting out of the house. And nah, we're stuck. I'm stuck. So starting therapy, and I will forever remember this as a turning point in just me having autonomy over myself in general. And I remember just talking to her about, you know, I was like, yeah, I gotta go to this stupid party or whatever. And she was like, what party for who? And I was like, it's somebody's birthday at my pastor's house. And she was like, you know, you don't have to go, right? And I was like, what? I don't have to go. She's like, say it again. I don't have to go. I was like, I don't have to go. I was like, wait a minute. I don't have to go to nothing they say I have to go to. She's like, you don't.
That part of your life began again. It was the first sentence lifting up because it was.
And that was literally when I went to the pastor at the time, because one of the things that we had agreed upon with us moving to Minnesota was like, I got my kids, I've got things I'm doing, but this guy is here for you. And I told him, once I realized that all of his people sucked, they couldn't be trusted, and they were full of shit, I literally went to his office and I said, my service to God, the church, and you is the guy I'm married to. I'll be here and there. I ain't working for y'all no more. I ain't fucking with this person. I ain't messing with them, because what do I always do? What am I so proud of myself for at this point in my life? I give everything my greatest shot. Like, I go hard and I go hard and I go hard until I just can't anymore. Obviously. And I couldn't. It was killing me. And instead of me like wasting away, it was just piling onto me in little deposits around my body of sadness and grief and what the fuck and confusion. I had sleep apnea. I had high blood pressure.
That was the scariest thing, just knowing that. Like, you had never had those issues, and it's like, okay, she's gone. All right, she's far away. And, oh, okay, this too. Okay, cool. Great, she can die in her sleep, and there's nothing we can do. We're so fucking far away from you.
So when I look at pictures of myself in certain times when I was living there, I can tell I am a physical manifestation of how I was feeling living there. Like, I was overweight, I was unhappy, like, and then I was so out of place, I didn't even know how to dress for the winter, girl. Like I literally bought like 12 tunics in different colors and like 12 pairs of tights. And because it's like, first of all, here, like, we can get so cute. We can wear a pea coat and we can wear little booties. You can't wear booties in Minnesota. That snow will be in your shoe in 5 seconds. So, like, I was always pissed that the one thing that I did have was like, oh, I can get cute and leave the house. Can't even do that because I got to wear 16 layers of stuff. I got to wear snow boots. Who was trying to go somewhere and change from their snow boots to another pair of shoes? And, like, I hated everything about it. You know this.
No, I would never.
You know this.
I can't.
By my last winter there, like, I would have fought every icicle I saw. Like, I was just so over everything about that.
No, you're done when you're done. You're done.
I literally said,
because I'm not.
Bye.
Hey, thank God for the agnostic lady.
Ah!
But
So,
it is what it is.
The point that I wanted to get across, though, with religion as a whole, is that my main problem, and something that what I've been trying to get across, like, ever since, especially coming from this situation in Minnesota, is that, like, we're doing it the wrong way.
Yeah. I just came up with the best thing.
What?
Religion. Use it as a tool, not as a weapon.
Literally, it is so weaponized, and it's really unfair and confusing because
it should be a vulnerable, safe space, and you're weaponizing it.
It's literally
this or that.
It's literally being used to weaponize, and it just, at this point, it makes more people feel bad than it makes them feel good, and that's not the point, because there were times where I would be at church, and one of the most incredible things to me about going to church the reason I really go to church is for praise and worship, because I'm a musician, I'm a singer, so
getting in that space artistically, that's a
right.
good way to feel close to God, I'm sure.
Right, so I would visually like see in my mind, you know, I always see things visually like that. I would see like the voices like going into heaven, like God hearing us. What are you eating? God hearing us sing. And so like I am deeply connected like on a spiritual level to worship music, and I feel like to God on a different level. There's, you know, sometimes where, you know, I love to be out in nature, but there's sometimes where nature is so still and so quiet that like what else can you experience except for the presence of something greater than yourself, regardless of what it is that you believe in, because we're all so very small
and connected.
So it's like there's so many beautiful things you can get from religion that are so washed out because of all of the nasty stuff. Like more people are afraid of Christians and Christianity and God because it's been so weaponized, and that's like that should be every Christian's greatest fear. It should
That was the point.
Like
the wars. Do you not want different? Do you want to just change that? Because really, and that was another driver behind being agnostic, was the fact of how much bloodshed and awful wars in the name of God. And so
if I were agnostic, if I were you, one of my questions would be like, you know, give me 3 examples of somebody who's happy because they're a Christian, like a real life example of somebody who's like, one, actually doing what the Bible says to do. One, because
friends from all over. It's not judging people. For me, that's the rarest thing I
This dude that pastored my last church literally posted a video talking about like whoever cast the first stone or whatever, but it's like they are literally out here behind closed doors doing the worst of 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 the most unimaginable of the worst. But then they take this is what they do in church. They say, hey, pray for your girl Jaleesa, you know, her, she's having a mental breakdown or something like that.
Or she's having a projection, whatever it is that they say.
Pray for your girl.
Projection.
Pray for your girl Ashley. I heard she's stressed.
How bad are you feeling about yourself?
It's like it's so deeply rooted. It's so bad, and it's like everybody tries to minimize it because it's a culture that they get away with because of their position. And I'm gonna just stop. I know what I should end on. All right.
We do need to end it. Yeah.
Every other profession, every other title. You have to literally go to school, go to class, do a certification, go to a board of peers or mentors or something. When you are ordained as a pastor, my guy, just listen. Mm-hmm. First of all, if you are ordained as a non-denominational pastor, you are a pastor of the air, and nobody is above you. Do you know what I mean? You cannot report a non-denominational pastor to a council of non-denomination because it don't exist. Right. There's a church over here just doing the worst. They got some sex trafficking going on. And I wanted to, I'm sorry, let me look them up. Okay, they're what? They're not a denomination? Oh, sorry, ain't shit we can do about it. They're not Pentecostal, they're not a church of the God of the Americas, they're not a Baptist. Oh, no.
No accountability.
Okay, I'm sorry, you call the FBI.
Yeah, but no board, no accountability.
There's literally no accountability. Mm-hmm. And if I'm a pastor of a non-denominational church, Ashley, you are my associate pastor. Nobu, you used to be the drummer, but now you are going to teach Bible study on Wednesdays. Also, I'm going to ordain Braxton to be the,
Yeah. Can Ellie be our marriage counselor?
Oh my gosh. Joella can literally...
Episode 2. I'm going to preface with episode 2.
As a matter of fact, I'm almost done with my associates in psychology. I can just be the marriage counselor, the marriage therapist, and teach classes on Thursday about how to do...
Okay. This is a good teaser for next time. This is gonna get the juicy juice.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I did make some friends in Minnesota.
Yeah, of course.
I made 2 friends.
I know. They were the only ones that you ever consistently talked about positively.
I made 2 friends.
And
so I'm
going
to tell you, every single person at that church I looked at, there was some hilarious revelations that I had about that church when I would get upset sometimes. One, I would look around and I'd be like, who am I mad about? Hold up. Would I ever care about this person if I didn't know them from church? Would I pick this person out and be like, let's be friends, you're a great person, I want to have you. I didn't invite anybody to my house. I lived there for, I don't know, 5 years.
Yeah.
And the number of people they can say that they actually stepped foot in my house because they were invited. There were some people that walked in, but people that were actually invited, I would count less than 10 because my house was the only sacred place that I had. I made 2 friends because they were the 2 people that I thought had the most sense. And now, to be honest, sadly, they still might be. But both of them were still terrible people. And they did everything in the name of God. And they still do. And I love that for them. And was your matcha good?
It was. Let's go.
Nobody went to sleep. We're gonna do another episode. Part 2 called.
Just put your seatbelts on.
Part 2 called. I couldn't even start because there's so much. So,
I know.
last time our video cut off because our mics cut out. But my number one purpose, because I didn't say this in the beginning, but I should probably start off by saying like, my history is that I have bipolar disorder, I have PTSD, and I have ADHD like a mofo. But I do have suicidal ideation, and I am a suicide survivor, and I always want to advocate for you having a safety plan in action. And if you don't have a safety plan, worst case, best case, whatever scenario, we're going to call the National Suicide Hotline, or we can text them, and I'm going to link everything below. But here's the thing, everybody out here struggling, and here's the thing that we have the hardest problem with is that we struggle every single day, probably every second of every single day. It gives you no pass to be a shitty person. It also gives no one a pass to be shitty to you. Don't be embarrassed to say that you're not okay. Reach out if you need help. I can guarantee you Ashley would be so much more inconvenienced by my death than by me calling her at 3 a.m. because I can't sleep. As a matter of fact, she got mad at me because I didn't call her at 3 a.m. one time when I couldn't sleep.
On. She does it for me. So I'm traumatized by the American experience. So while I do not have any diagnosed disorder of any kind, it is still hard to fucking live out here. So
churches may have done you dirty.
Yeah.
Therapists may have done you dirty.
Yeah.
Best friends may have done you dirty.
Yeah.
We understand. We don't understand. We want to. We kind of probably don't want to, honestly. We want to help you through that. We want to empathize, but we know that pain is real.
Yeah.
And I'm really just here to talk about my experiences to help myself and all of us through this. But we're going to link that stuff below. And I am offline, so I would say message me if you're going through something, but I'm taking a break because, like I said, y'all ain't getting this shit for